Egypt, a country full of secrets and fascinating history, is often the subject of myths. Many popular ideas about ancient Egypt are based on misunderstandings and inaccurate interpretations. This introduction aims to debunk some of the most common myths and contrast the facts. The mythical belief.
The pyramids were built by slaves. Construction. Detailed fact. Archaeological evidence suggests that the pyramids were built by well-paid and highly skilled workers. Archaeological finds prove the existence of workers' villages with good supplies and infrastructure. The graves of workers near the pyramids testify to respect and appreciation. Archaeological excavations have uncovered workers' villages near the pyramids. These settlements reveal an organized, well-supplied labor force. Discoveries show systematic planning and coordination in pyramid construction. Pharaohs were seen as possessing endless magical power, but in truth they were political and spiritual figures. Pharaohs' authority hinged on laws, governance, and spiritual convictions. Hieroglyphs transcended decorative purposes. Hieroglyphs were a sophisticated script. It recorded historical events, spiritual practices, and governance activities, enabling Egyptians to preserve their wisdom and culture for future generations. Myth. Ancient Egyptian society was not completely isolated.
Egyptian facts.
Egypt engaged in vast trade networks with diverse cultures, located both in the Middle East and the Mediterranean region.
Trade enabled the exchange of resources, knowledge, and cultural influences. Trade routes and archaeological finds prove the exchange of goods between Egypt and other regions. The exchange of ideas and technologies between Egypt and other regions is evidenced by historical artifacts. Egypt was a hub for cultural and economic exchange in the Middle East. Eastern myth.
Mummification was exclusively for religious purposes. Fact.
Mummification also served to preserve the body and expand anatomical knowledge. Mummification enabled detailed studies of human anatomy, which contributed to medical development. The mummification process required detailed anatomical knowledge. Preservation techniques were crucial to mummification. Organs were removed to prevent decay.
To eliminate moisture, the body was dried using baking soda. Once dried, resins and linen bandages were applied to the body. Myths surround the pharaohs.
Male fact.
There were also female pharaohs such as Hatshepsut, who ruled as queen. Hatshepsut assumed the full authority of a pharaoh and ruled Egypt with skill.
Wisdom of Hatshepsut.
An extraordinary female pharaoh governed Egypt for over 20 years. Her reign was marked by the construction of impressive buildings that still stand today as testaments to her power and influence. Hatshepsut's successful governance played a crucial role in Egypt's stability and prosperity.
According to myth.
Egyptian art was recognized for its static and unalterable nature.
Fact. Egyptian art evolved over the millennia. Egyptian art reflected cultural and religious changes. Comparative analyses illustrate the development of styles in Egyptian art. The development of techniques in Egyptian art is shown through comparative studies. Stylistic changes are reflected in the depiction of human figures. The use of colors and materials varied according to the era and purpose.
Myth. The ancient Egyptians worshipped cats.
God's fact. In ancient Egypt, cats were regarded as sacred animals.
Cats were considered sacred animals, but not worshipped as gods. Cats were often mummified in ancient Egypt, reflecting their spiritual significance. The worship of cats in temples underscores their central role in Egyptian culture. The practice of mummification and temple worship attests to the high status of the cat in ancient times.
Egypt myth.
Egyptian medicine was primitive and ineffective. Fact.
Egyptian physicians had extensive knowledge of anatomy. Fact. Them.
Performed complex surgical procedures.
Fact. Them. Developed an extensive pharmacy with effective drugs. Archaeological finds and medical texts attest to the advanced medical practices in ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptians had a deep understanding of anatomy and performed complex surgeries that were part of the medical practices. The Sphinx was built by the ancient Egyptians and not by aliens. The Sphinx serves as a symbol of royal power and protection. Archaeological evidence confirms the construction of the Sphinx by the ancient Egyptians during the Old Kingdom. Scientific analysis confirms the Egyptian origin of the Sphinx. Historical records support the Egyptian origin of the Sphinx. The combination of scientific data and historical evidence provides comprehensive confirmation. Myth: Egyptian agriculture was simple and inefficient. The ancient Egyptians developed sophisticated irrigation systems to increase agricultural production. Advanced cultivation techniques included crop rotation and the use of fertilizers. These innovations enabled high agricultural productivity despite the challenges of the desert climate. The regular flooding of the Nile was used to irrigate the farmland and increase its fertility. Irrigation from Nile floods enabled continuous agriculture and contributed significantly to food security. By using the Nile water in a targeted manner, the ancient Egyptians were able to maximize their agricultural yields.
Myth. The ancient Egyptians did not have advanced mathematics. Knowledge. Fact.
The Egyptians developed a sophisticated mathematical system. This system was essential for the construction of pyramids, temples, and other monumental structures. Geometry and arithmetic are used to calculate areas.
Volume calculations are based on geometric principles and arithmetic operations. Proportions are visualized through geometric constructions and arithmetic ratios. The combination of geometry and arithmetic enables precise measurements and modeling. Myth. The temples were built by magical forces.
Protected. Fact. The temples were protected by ingenious architectural and engineering solutions. The architectural solutions included the careful alignment of the temple to minimize solar radiation and temperature fluctuations. Engineering solutions included the use of stable building materials and sophisticated drainage systems. Engineers planned temples to withstand the forces of nature. The construction of temples took into account resistance to environmental influences. The planning included protection from wind, rain,
and seismic
activities. Myth.
The ancient Egyptians believed that the earth was flat.
Disc. Fact. The ancient Egyptians had a complex understanding of the sky and the stars. They used astronomical observations for agriculture, religious ceremonies, and calendar making. Ancient civilizations carefully observed the stars to measure time and track the seasons based on the movements of the sun and stars. Create a calendar to organize your life. This calendar helped them plan agricultural activities and organize religious festivals.
A myth.
The ancient Egyptians did not possess advanced technology. The Egyptians developed innovative technologies in the fields of construction, agriculture, and warfare. Egyptian construction techniques included advanced methods of extracting, transporting, and placing heavy stone blocks. Egyptian agriculture used sophisticated irrigation systems and calendar methods to optimize crop yields. In the military field, the Egyptians developed advanced weapons and tactics that gave them military advantages. Levers are used to move heavy loads with little force. Rollers make it possible to change the direction of the pulling force, making it easier to lift loads. Various mechanisms combined make it possible to cope with complex tasks and move very heavy objects.
A myth. The ancient Egyptians were not seafarers. Fact.
The Egyptians were experienced seafarers who traded on the Nile and the Mediterranean. Trade on the Nile and Mediterranean enabled the exchange of goods and cultures. Ships were built to transport both goods and people. These ships enabled trade and migration over long distances. The construction of these ships was an essential factor in the development of global trade networks. Myth. Egyptians wore only simple linen clothes. An Egyptian fact.
Wore a variety of clothing, from simple linen fabrics to elaborate robes. The variety of Egyptian clothing reflected social hierarchies and ritual functions.
Colors were used to express a person's social status and personality. Patterns served as visual cues of belonging to a particular group or culture. Jewelry was used to demonstrate wealth, power, and religious beliefs. The combination of color, patterns, and jewelry allowed for complex visual communication. Myth hieroglyphics were accessible only to priests and scholars.
Fact.
Hieroglyphics were used by a wider section of the population, especially for public inscriptions. The public use of hieroglyphs served to communicate and represent power. Hieroglyphs served to record history, religion, and administration. Hieroglyphic writing made it possible to record complex information permanently. The systematic arrangement of hieroglyphs allowed a structured representation of knowledge mixed with myth.
The ancient Egyptians had no music. Indeed, a fact remains.
Ancient Egyptians had a rich musical tradition. This tradition included a variety of instruments and songs. Music played a significant role in religious ceremonies, festivals, and daily life. Musical instruments were not only tools but also symbols of cultural identity and spiritual meaning. The variety of instruments reflected the different musical traditions and cultural practices.
Myth. The Egyptians were always serious and religious. Fact.
The Egyptians also played games and had fun. Games such as Zenet were popular pastimes in ancient Egypt. Archaeological finds prove the existence of various toys and games in ancient Egypt, games such as Zenet and mowing, bar-eye.
Entertainment was popular in ancient Egypt. Pastime Sinet board game.
A board game with religious significance symbolized the journey of the soul through the underworld. Another popular game was played on a spiral board that represented a snake. These games not only provided entertainment but also encouraged strategic thinking and social interaction.
Myth. Life in ancient Egypt was characterized by hardness and joylessness. Fact. The Egyptians celebrated numerous festivals and maintained a vibrant culture. Festivals offered people a welcome change from everyday life in ancient Egypt and strengthened the sense of community. Egyptian culture was rich in music, dance, art, and religious ceremonies. Festivals were often closely linked to religious ceremonies. Music and dance played a central role in shaping festive occasions.
Games and competitions were a popular part of
fixed ancient myth. The ancient Egyptians were a peaceful people. Wars historical fact. The ancient Egyptians fought wars to defend their territory and expand their influence. Egyptian armies used various weapons and tactics to achieve their military objectives. Military power assured ancient Egypt resources and political control. The development of advanced weapons made it possible to revolutionize military strategies. New tactics have been developed to maximize the effectiveness of the upgraded weapons. The combination of advanced weapons and innovative tactics resulted in military superiority. Myth. The Egyptians believed in many different gods who were constantly present. War, historical fact.
Egyptian religion was complex and evolved over time. Egyptian religion included a variety of deities, each with specific roles and responsibilities. The religious practices of the ancient Egyptians included rituals, sacrifices, and the construction of temples. Gods representing different aspects of nature, goddesses representing different aspects of human life.
Each deity embodies specific powers and responsibilities. Myth.
All Egyptians were mummified. In fact, mummification was an expensive process reserved only for the rich and powerful. The process involved complex techniques and valuable materials, making it unaffordable for the general population. The majority of Egyptians were simply buried in the desert. The simple desert burial was the most common form of resting the dead in ancient Egypt.
The nature of the desert soil contributed to natural mummification. Fable. Only priests and nobles received one. Education. Fact. Education was also important for scribes, craftsmen, and other professions. The ability to read and write enabled different sections of society to participate in knowledge and develop professionally. Reading, writing, and arithmetic form the basic pillars of education.
Learning these skills allows access to knowledge and the development of critical thinking. Schools and libraries are central places for teaching these elementary skills. Many popular ideas about ancient Egypt are based on myths and misconceptions. Archaeological evidence and historical research have greatly expanded our understanding of this civilization. Modern research provides a more accurate and nuanced picture of ancient Egypt.